Hi there, Jeff here from the Wetsuit Centre, talking to you today about the Oneill Epic range of wetsuits for winter 2019 into 2020. So probably the biggest change in the Oneill range this year is amongst the sort of Epic, that wetsuit which has been at the sort of core of their range for many years now and remained unchanged. Has undergone a bit of a facelift, and it now becomes the Oneill Epic, available in back zip and chest zip and in lots of different variations. So this year they've really concentrated on streamlining the wetsuit range, and whereas previously they had a bit of a sort of play with the Super Freak, you may or may not remember, and then that swapped to the Oneill Original, which is a wetsuit which is slightly more technical than the Epic. It came in a chest zip version, and it sat between the Epic and the more technical range of Hyper Freaks and Psychos, that kind of thing. So that's no more the original, it's gone, and basically that's been replaced with the Epic in a chest zip, which makes more sense when you think about it. Rather than having different suits, you've basically just got the Epic now, but it's in lots of different variants. And so the Epic is the entry-level suit for winter. So in summer you tend to get a bit of a cheaper range of wetsuits like the Reactor, Bahia for ladies and that kind of thing, so there's a broader range. But in winter it's quite simple. You start with the Epic, and that starts around the mid-hundreds depending on the thickness of the wetsuit, and then you go more and more technical from there. So the Epic this year is available for men, women and kids, and lots of different thicknesses. So you're looking at 4mm, which tends to be 4.3, which tends to be good for sort of autumn, spring, good for sort of Europe and slightly warmer water, or for people that don't feel the cold. You've got the 5.4, which is 5mm on the body, 4mm on the arms. That tends to be the go-to thickness for the UK winter. And then obviously a lot of people further up north will go for a hooded wetsuit with a 6.54, which would be 6mm, so a bit thicker, inbuilt hood, and then 4mm on the arms. So depending on your tolerance for the cold, whereabouts you're sort of using the wetsuit, that will dictate on the thickness that you go for. It goes right down to a 3.2, and then in the summer the same wetsuit will come with like a shorty version, long arm, and then you've got a 2mm short arm version. But for winter we'll concentrate on the 4mm upwards, basically, in the hooded wetsuit. All of these different variations are available to men, women and kids, and they're all available on our website. So lots of different colours and that kind of thing. But the key benefits of the suit are really going to be sort of go through with you now. There are some fundamental differences between the chest entry and the back zip, aside from the entry system, which we'll go through, but they are pretty minimal. We'll start with the back zip. The back zip has not changed, so the back zip is pretty much exactly the same it has been for many a year, and it works really well. Really good value for money, and essentially it's probably our best-selling wetsuit every year in most thicknesses. So it's 100% super stretch, or ultra stretch neoprene as the Oneill call it, and the benefits you get from ultra stretch neoprene is basically in the name. It's very flexible. It's really soft to the touch. The lycra they use over the rubber is very soft to the touch, and there's lots of little bubbles of air within the rubber itself, giving it more flexibility and better insulating properties as well, because those little bubbles will trap warm air and insulate you better when you're in the water. So essentially it's 100% super stretch the whole way through, and that's the same for the chest entry version as well, which looks kind of cool. And that's minimal seams on the wetsuits as well. So one of the key things they concentrate on when making suits is make sure that you're not hindered in any way by the seams. So under the arms there's one piece of neoprene, which they call seamless paddle zones. That gives you lots of flexibility, so when you do a paddle motion you're not going to be hindered by the stitching or anything like that. With the back zip you get a smooth skin on the front and back, the same with the chest entry as well, and some people like that. It's quite good for sort of sticking to your board, but it's also good at keeping wind out of the suit. So if you're a windsurfer or a kite surfer and traditionally you like to have that on your core, it has got a little bit better properties, the smooth single line neoprene, that soft rubber, for basically keeping wind out of the suit, and obviously then keeping your core warmer and keeping your body warmer as well. The downside of it is a bit more fragile and has a bit less flexibility running through it. Okay, but it's still down to preference at the end of the day. So some of the other features you get in the suit, we'll look at the back zip. The back zip obviously has a back zip. It's a PK zip, which is a specially tested zip to make sure which is water resistant, and it's also very good at not corroding and sort of getting clogged up with salt. So it's really important to have a zip like that. I'd much prefer these than the sort of plastic zips that you get with some wetsuits. They're a lot more hardy and robust and tend to last the suit longer. It's a waterproof zip, so it shouldn't let any water through the teeth, but the water that does let through will be met with this small barrier, just a flap of neoprene to stop it coming into the suit. In terms of the seams on the suit, they are glued and blind stitched. Now this is probably the most important thing when choosing your winter wetsuit or grabbing a winter wetsuit. Now essentially the way that wetsuits work is water that comes into the suit is then sort of used to warms up to your body temperature, and then is then kept inside the suit and is used to keep you warm basically. That's why it's called a wetsuit. So you do get water inside the rubber and basically on the lining of the suit and inside the suit. But that warms up to your body temperature and actually is used to insulate you. The idea is that you don't let much fresh water come through the wetsuit, because then that's going to get you colder and you have to reheat it every time, and then that's when you start getting cold after a short period of time if your wetsuit isn't sealed. So glued and blind stitched or sealed seams are very important to have to make sure that you don't constantly have fresh water coming into the suit and get cold. Basically what that means is when the two pieces of neoprene are butted up together, they're stitched halfway through and then glued. And that will just mean that the seams aren't breathable like some of the cheaper wetsuits or summer wetsuits, water coming in through the punch holes. So it'll just keep that warmer water in the suit for longer and keep you in the water for longer basically. So that's really important. And the more money that you spend, then you tend to get sort of like taped seams, rubber taped seams, liquid taped seams, which you get in the sort of higher sort of priced suits basically. But the Epic has glued and blind stitch seams the whole way through, and as we go inside the suit, some of those seams are taped as well. Typically on the critical areas like around the chest panel there where the thermal lining is. It's a better contact against the skin, so it's less abrasive on your skin, but it's also just good there to reinforce certain areas. You get it around the cuff where you're sort of pushing through the seam like that, and around the ankles, that kind of thing. But it's not a taped wetsuit. So looking inside the suit as well, you'll notice that there is a thermal panel or a blue panel. That's the only thing really worth opening the suit right up for, and basically that's a thermal lining. So much like thermal underwear, it's a non-absorbent, so kind of a waterproof material that's tightly woven, and what that'll do is trap warm air as it leaves your body and insulates you with that warm air rather than letting it leave through the neoprene quicker if you didn't have that panel. You only get that around the chest with the back zip wetsuit. Okay, so that is a fundamental difference between the chest zip and the back zip, because the chest zip you get it front and back. But this stuff is really good at keeping you heat inside the suit and giving you a little bit more warmth on your core. Okay, now a lot of people will ask sort of benefits of back zip versus chest zip. People who go with the back zip tend to sort of like to get into the suit easier, get in and out of the suit a bit easier, because you see the zip comes right the way down to the bottom, allows you to open the suit right up and get the suit on easier. So if you're usually bigger chaps or bigger ladies, less flexible people tend to be prone to go for or more they sort of gravitate towards these back zips because they're just much easier to get on and off without having to ask someone in the car park. Whereas you have the sort of younger crew coming up, they tend to go for the chest entry suits. But then as you get younger and younger, sort of 6, 8-year-olds, that kind of thing, because the parents don't want to have to be helping them too much get in and out of the suit, they tend to go for a back zip as well quite a lot because they're easy to get on and off. But the benefits of having a chest zip, if we cross over to the chest zip, is you have an unbroken seam or back panel, so no zip running down the back of the suit, which means that you don't have any sort of anything hindering the stretch of the suit. So if you imagine you're paddling, arching your back, SUPing, anything like that, to have that extra freedom of movement in the back of the suit is quite a bonus. So that's why chest zips are becoming more and more popular. And also, there's no collar, or sort of broken collar if you like, so there's no zip running through breaking the collar, so you can have a better seal around the neck basically, and that better seal around the neck is really good for duck diving. So when you're duck diving or falling off at speed or anything like that, the chest zips are less prone to flushing through, in my opinion anyway. Okay, so if we move over to the chest zip, have a little look at the suit. The 654, this is the ladies one, is also just in chest zip, so you only get that in the chest zip. It's just a bit more works obviously a bit more intuitively with the hood and everything like that. A bit hard to make a hooded back zip wetsuit. So the chest zip wetsuit, fundamental difference then really comes down to the entry system. Obviously this particular suit comes across the chest, clips down with a little toggle, and then you've got a little bit of a cord here underneath all of this test neoprene or example neoprene, which you can tighten up, which means that basically you get a nice fit around the side of the chest zip and less water coming in through the side. But it goes up and over your head, and essentially this is the inside of the wetsuit here. So this collar is the inside panel of the wetsuit, and what you do is you get in through the top of the wetsuit. It's best to sort of turn it inside out down to the waist, but we've got a video on how to get in and out of a chest zip wetsuit. But essentially you are getting in through the top. And once you've got the wetsuit on, this panel goes up and over the top, zips across there, clips down, and it's Loctite. There's really very minimal chance of water coming in anywhere apart from through the collar when you fall off at speed or if it's not fitting very well. But essentially if you're duck diving, you should still have no flush coming through the neck of the wetsuit. So that's the chest entry system. So you can imagine it is a bit harder to get on and off. There is a knack to it, and we do a video on that, but essentially it's just turning it inside out down to the waist, putting it on like a pair of trousers, then up and over your body. So in 2 stages really. So if we turn it inside out, I can show you what's going on inside. It is fundamentally the biggest difference between the chest zip and the back zip wetsuit as well. So in terms of the taping, everything like that, it's very similar, just on the critical points of the wetsuit, on the bits that are going to be more prone to stretching. So if you have a little look, and we turn this inside out, it's a neoprene, and you have a little look on the crutch of the wetsuit, you've got that taping around the crutch, because you've got that taping around the crotch because this is quite a stress point on the wetsuit. If you're sat on a surfboard or a wide board or anything like that, it really pulls across the crotch. So again, these are important areas to have reinforced, if you like. And so the more of that you have inside the suit, the better really, just to really get you the best or the most amount of longevity out of the wetsuit. And so you're not having to buy a new wetsuit every year because it's leaking. Now Oneill suits, just to let you know, they do come with a warranty, a year's warranty. They're really good at dealing with the wetsuits, but it does mean if the suit does break, you're going to be without a suit for a couple of weeks. But essentially the warranty is with the manufacturer, and they're really good at, if it's a failure in the suit, so like the seams, basically, or if the zip breaks and something that shouldn't break, that hasn't been caused by impact or that kind of stuff, then they will sort it out for you. Usually involves a repair. Okay, so this is the inside of the suit. This is the back part of the suit. So the difference between the chest zip and the back zip, in the chest zip you're getting that thermal lining on the back of the wetsuit around the kidneys and lower part of the back of the lumbar. It's around the chest entry around the chest as well. So whereas the back zip, you just really tend to get that just around the chest. With the chest entry suit, you get that around the front and the back, which does a lot in terms of insulating you and keeping heat inside the wetsuit. Bring along here, this is the one for ladies. You've got the hooded wetsuit as well. That's on the chest entry version. Still got the thermal lining front and back. You've got an inbuilt hood. I believe the hood feels like it's about a 3mm hood. So that's going to give you lots of additional warmth. Obviously you lose a lot of heat through your head. So you always should be wearing a hood in the winter anyway. And that will just sort of insulate you. Some people like the built-in hood and some don't. There's the one for ladies. Okay, so that's essentially everything that's going on with the Oneill Epic. There's lots of other little features. You could go on all day about all the tiny little bits and pieces about the wetsuit. But essentially the key things and what you're spending money on is the super stretch neoprene, sealed seams, bit of thermal lining on the chest. You've got that roll neck collar, which is basically a double lined collar, which allows the outer piece of neoprene to move independently from the inside piece of neoprene, and that should again create a better seal and less rash and rub. And then you have got things you'd expect, like a little key pocket further down on the leg. Obviously non-electronic keys, so you can just clip in there. And then you've got Duraflex knee pads, which is a tried and tested material which all of the manufacturers use on the knees because it's really good at lasting a long time and not wearing through. Okay, but essentially that's everything you need to know about the Oneill Epic. So if you're looking at for sort of a wetsuit that's not too cheap, but sort of sits within the mid £100 up to sort of £200, the Epic is definitely a really good one to go for. It comes in the 4.3, 3.2 and a 5.4, and then the 6.54 now as well, which is just over 200 quid. So really good value for money. A couple of years, probably about 5 or 10 years ago, this wetsuit would have been big money and probably been top of the range, but now it sort of sits at the entry level of the range of wetsuits. But having said that, still 100% super stretch, really good, flexible, functional wetsuit that lasts a long time, tried and tested, probably our most top selling winter wetsuit every year. It's just a case of whether you prefer it in the chest entry, hooded wetsuit or in the back zip.